Games? I suppose it depends on what you mean by games. If you're referring to pastime activity instead of sport, then I think Ronda is a popular game. It's a card game and generally played by a lot of men in cafes here when they're not sitting around reading the papers or discussing politics and football, that is. Not these days, no. I don't really have much time for them, but I do like Uno, the card game, or some other board games like Monopoly or Trivial Pursuit. I like Monopoly just for the fact that I can hold so much cash in my hands. I think in Morocco, children learn how to play certain games from their friends. For instance, I remember one time when my daughter came home from school and excitedly tried to teach me how to play a new game that she's picked up from her friends. I think parents also play a part in teaching kids how to play different games as well. Yeah, I think so. I mean, these days, children are far too distracted by things that they see on screen. You know, like the television, computer, mobile phones, to socialize with other people. I think games are really important in teaching kids social skills that um, are going to be very useful for them in life. I mean, not only kids, but I also think it's equally important for people in general to be able to build relationships through games. A few years ago, I went on holiday to Singapore to visit my family. I think it was sometime in August. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, I remember going to these night markets with my husband and children, and it was just marvelous. There were all sorts of things there, from nail cutters to clothes and toys, and to exotic fruit like durians and mangosteens. And they were so cheap too. I really felt dizzy for choice. It was just so easy telling yourself that you're on a budget when you go shopping, but when you actually get to these markets, you can throw that promise out the window. These street markets are usually open at night, and they are what you would call mobile markets, which is what makes them unique. They move from neighborhood to neighborhood, and it gets loud and noisy whenever they open, and that's what I love about them. The crowds, the noise, the items, it just all adds to the atmosphere. The market itself is quite big and it can stretch for a few hundred meters or occupy half a football field. So you could have a nice long walk and browse through all that they have to offer. What I like about these night markets is the fact that things are so cheap and there is a colourful atmosphere. I quite enjoy the noise and the interesting items that are on sale. It's funny because you tend to end up buying things that you don't really need just because they're really cheap. I remember going home with a $1 Chinese fan, and I still have it after so many years. Well, in the country where I live now, people generally prefer to go to outdoor markets as prices tend to be a lot lower and they can get a bargain and negotiate prices with street vendors. You can find items ranging from fruit and vegetables to toiletries like shampoo and soap. Um, the sellers normally sell their products either from a cart, which they wheel around themselves, or sometimes with the help of a horse or a donkey. But quite often you will see the items being laid out on the ground in front of you. And in some places, like the old Medina, for instance, you can find people selling second-hand things like bags and clothes and even old batteries. Nowadays, you can see newly built malls springing up around the country, and people are starting to gravitate towards these places more and more, especially the younger ones, or those who generally prefer less hassle in looking for things in different places. I mean, you can usually find everything in one place at the chain supermarkets here, and I think they're becoming a booming business, these hypermarkets. Um, However, prices are obviously higher there, but in spite of that, they're still gaining popularity among locals. Although I do sometimes fear that they will eventually kill off local businesses. But I don't think that will happen as people still prefer the relationship building aspect that comes with shopping at the local grocers. No, not really. As far as I'm concerned, anything goes in the open market, at least in this country anyway. Fish, onions, clothes, second-hand watches, anything. If you're out looking for a bargain, then the market would be a good place to hunt, I think. However, it's really not to everyone's taste. Supermarkets are much better for convenience. And if you want to look for something quickly and price is not an issue, then I think that's the place to go. However, people here are rather price conscious, and a lot of them still prefer going to outdoor markets and local shops for things that they need. To be honest with you, shopping can be more of a social experience rather than people going to buy something they want and then go home. In general, however, I tend to see more young people going to modern-looking shops to get things simply for the fact that I suppose brand names are more recognized, despite being incredibly expensive sometimes. It may be that the younger generation favors the comfort and convenience of finding something they need from big supermarkets and also getting a brand that they can trust. The older ones, on the other hand, tend to be more price aware, you see. Many don't really care about the quality of the product that they buy and from where they get it, as long as it's a bargain. So, yeah, I think those are the basic differences between young people and older people when it comes to shopping. I think shops are very convenient if you run out of an item or two, but people generally don't go to the market to buy only one or two things. There's usually a shopping list, and shoppers are more prepared to go and negotiate prices with sellers, whereas you can't really do this in shops. Um, Prices are normally fixed, and people who go there are usually in and out of there in 2 seconds. So basically, the main advantage is being able to get something that you want very quickly. The other advantage, I believe, is the fact that neighborhoods are commonly dotted with shops within doors of each other, and so accessibility is one main factor why people choose to go to shops rather than markets. They're located very close to residential areas, and one doesn't have to travel very far to get what they need. Oh, I think advertising plays a huge part in persuading people to buy certain products. That's that's the point of advertising, isn't it? I not only think that it has become a strong influence on our purchasing choices, but it's also come to a point where it's truly intrusive. I mean, everywhere we look, we see some sort of advertising for whatever. Billboards, the paper, on the internet, on buses, the radio, TV, everywhere. You can't hide from it. It's all psychological, you see. I think the more the public sees a particular product or hears about it, the more an image or a word associated with that product gets ingrained in their mind. So, for example, if a person wants to buy a pair of running shoes and has a choice of buying those that are cheap of a relatively unknown brand, um, or maybe a pair of trainers that they regularly see on the telly that tells you about its durability or water resistance or anything else that you should know about it to make you choose to buy that particular product, then I think the consumer would be swayed into buying it. Of course, this is true for many people, but not for everyone. There are some people who prefer to buy a service or product simply because it delivers in quality without relying on advertising to generate sales. For example, some mobile owners prefer the simplicity in the function of a phone, which is to make simple calls and receive calls. And no amount of advertising of fancy gadgets is likely to convince the customer to buy one product over the other. And there are also people who are influenced by price, which is why some people take the time to go shopping to look for competitive prices when buying a certain product. Oh, absolutely. I mean, 30 years ago, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as internet shopping. People had to physically go outside and spend some time looking for things, looking at things when they shop. Shopping then was more of a social experience. Technology now has changed all that. Nowadays, people can just switch on their computers or mobile devices to go shopping. Don't get me wrong, it's great when you don't have to step out into the rain to do some shopping, but I think this is gradually reducing the kind of time that people could use to do things with family and friends, like going shopping together and taking the time to compare items and prices. It's more touch and go these days. At the same time, it's also fantastic for people who don't like the fuss of taking too much time to do their shopping when they could do this at the click of a button. I think people who have very busy lifestyles tend to do this more often. Also, people who live in different parts of the world are able to access a wider variety of products online. For example, if you can't find a particular brand or product in the country where you live now, you can easily order it online. I personally think that internet shopping has far more advantages than they do disadvantages.